Well, when I was a little boy sitting on my mama's.
Hello, welcome to Going Deeper. This is part 2 of a 2-part interview with Dr. Jody Noe. My name is Marcy Sklove, and I think we'll just jump right in. We had been talking about Dr. Noe's history and how she got to be in the kind of wonderful sort of synthesis of her 2 parts, but it's really not. It's really more woven together and integrated. So we have the naturopathic medicine, we have the Cherokee medicine woman, and your intuitive piece, because I know that's in both, but it's really quite something.
And I'm a mad scientist.
Oh, and a mad scientist. So I guess my first question is, how were you, like, did you find it difficult to synthesize the different modalities that you were learning?
You know, other people have asked me that question, and I am a scientist. I look for pathological targeted therapies on cell surfaces to aim natural products at, which, you know, one of my dreams is to have rooms with white walls and somebody endow me to stay there for a year, put bank by the beach so I can swim, and I will just go nuts. But what I found is that science just explains spirit. So same thing with all the anecdotal medicine practices that I learned before I became a scientific. I consider naturopathic medicine scientifically based. Everything in my studies of herbal medicine has proven my ancestors and my elders correct in their applications. I can tell you down to the constituents, and they use the medicines in ways that most of the vernacular doesn't, because they haven't learned it yet.
Right.
So they learn the superficial, well, yeah, nettles is good for this, or, but really, on all of the levels that we use the plant medicines, it's that integrated deep level. So we wouldn't do a plant medicine without a prayer. We wouldn't do a plant medicine without a ritual. And you would see your healer, and your healer would physically touch you as part of the healing, whether with a healing modality or with a hug. So it's, if you, in my practice, you notice that those are very similar things that I incorporate into my medical clinic, and that I try to teach young doctors and young herbalists to incorporate. It's our old traditions. I mean, our medicine now is trying to create primary care practitioners. Well, you and I had those. Our GP did everything, as well as look you in the eye and come to your house if you were sick. So that's not a lost tradition. That's a lost tradition in all of our medicines. Not just our traditional medicines, but the indigenous folks still practice that way. So it melded nicely for me. I never really thought about it as polar opposite.
No, I totally understand that. It's not really polar opposite.
They're the same for me. And I couldn't imagine being a scientist without spirit, and I couldn't imagine I'd be lost in that white room. And I couldn't imagine spirit without science, because I would be lost in the cave. So the two together allow me to walk in this world, although I would rather be in either one of those spots, because then I'm secluded and I get to just do the connection. But the part of the offering is you give it to people.
So are you saying that what you like best is
to geek out? And to play, and I'll do that with music or art, or if I have the time, I'll just do that for hours. But most of my time now is devoted to my practice, and so I'm geeking out more than I'm playing music or painting or doing those things. So I have to balance that with being outside in the woods, living a very natural life, and I'm pretty organic.
The white room.
And the white room is just a vision that I get to have. I have some white boards, though.
But also the way that I'm thinking about the supplements that you use that are all, NIH tested products, and that's kind of the white room part.
And that's important,
So can you tell us a little bit about the oncology piece? For instance, how sort of I think that our viewers would like to see some of the specifics of what your work is. So how does naturopathy and the kind of medicine that you use help for someone going through Western treatment?
That is...
because you wouldn't ever say to someone, don't do Western treatment, do this.
I don't.
Yeah.
I know there are others that do, but I am different. I honor my patients' choices and walk. I'll give them all the information, and I treat them like a family member. And I call it the family standard, and in that way, I feel good. I could say to my sister, here's all the information, and then you go home with your husband and talk about it and make your own decisions. And I have no problem. If you're a vegan and you're in chemo and your blood cells are going down, I'll talk to you about bone marrow soup. You know, I have no problem crossing those bridges that need to be crossed, and my elder taught me that.
Yeah.
You know, you just do the medicine as it comes. And, you know, my medicine is not only horizontal, but it's lateral with my education, so I just do it. So I don't tell them not to do something or to do something. I just give my best advice. I have patients who absolutely refuse, and I you know, refuse to do any, you know, it's not traditional. I call it conventional treatment. I call what we do the traditional. And together is the integration. So I try to let them know, because the statistics that your oncologists are giving you are not integrative statistics. They're statistics that are in the box of so many thousands of people getting this treatment for this cancer, which is how we work in large numbers. We have to generalize, and we have to do studies on the general public that way. But when you use integrative therapies, you mitigate the side effects of those treatments, and you enhance the cancer kill. So my patients that are doing those conventional treatments aren't having those conventional side effects. For the most part, they're the patients in the infusion room that are pink and healthy, maybe bald, eating, drinking, playing cards, going out to dinner and dancing afterwards. You know, they're very different, and their outcomes are different. And so in the future, we'll see those outcomes as statistical data. But right now, we're the cutting edge. And oncology has always been the first. Pediatric oncology has always been the cutting edge for cancer. Talking about Sidney Farber and wheeling his sick cancer patients, kids from the hospital, underneath the bowels of the hospital, to the ground floor where he could give them treatment so they wouldn't die of leukemia. I mean, so he was cutting edge for what we consider chemotherapy was cutting edge at one point. It was just surgery, and then when chemotherapy came in, it was crazy. Of course, crazily overdosed, but and now this integrative thing is cutting edge. But if you go back to my traditional training, we were treating cancer with plants and prayers, and every indigenous culture was. So that integration comes in levels.
Sure.
But for the cancer patient now, they're getting the best, I think, of both worlds when they integrate. The chemotherapy, radiation, surgical oncology has become state of the art, where we do less and have more effect. And the same token, the integrative strategies not only enable you to remain on your sequence in your conventional care with your oncological team, but mitigate side effects, help you to have a better quality of life, and we're doing our own cancer kill. I am targeting therapies. All of us who are working at this level of integrative oncology with naturopathic medicine are targeting therapies. And the herbalists, I teach herbal conferences because the herbalists, my frontline therapists, they're out there, they're not afraid. They hug their patients and they give them tea. And they give them plants and they make them feel better. If some catnip tea takes away your nausea, you don't have to take a drug. And you have some honey in there that calms your mucositis. So it doesn't sound like rocket science, but then if I took you down the constituent actions, you'd be like, wow, it is rocket science. So, you know, that it sounds simple, but it is really very complex because you don't want to mitigate the treatment. You want that to be if they're going to do it, you want it to work.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm understanding very much how it enhances, everything is enhancing the treatment and mitigating and lessening the side effects.
Without diminishing the treatment effect.
Yeah.
That's the
yeah,
tricky part.
Yeah.
That's where the whole controversy with antioxidants and certain plants and depending on chemos. And so this is my 20th year
Wow.
being a physician, licensed physician in practice, going for my 20th medical school reunion in a couple of weeks. So we're kind of the cutting edge, but it is happening. The ball is rolling. We have integrative cancer hospitals now. We have cancer hospitals that are trying to integrate, and they're putting acupuncture or nutrition. Massage has come a long way. I mean, in my 20 years, I've looked for an oncological masseuse. They were taught not to touch cancer patients who need to be touched the most.
Yeah.
Just now it's turning over. My young massage therapist, you know, all about it.
Yeah.
So we are changing it. It's a slow change.
So, how does the prayer piece come in? Like when you see patients in your office and then you give them, you know, a sheet full of supplements to take and different things to take, where does the prayer piece come in?
Well, I have to be very PC, I guess. I don't just come out and say, hey, do you pray? But in my intake, which is 6 pages long, there's a little couple of questions about your spiritual practices and how you sleep. I kind of mix it all in together, which I look at. I look at every question.
Yeah.
And so if I see that they kind of have a floating area, I ask them about that area in depth, their diet, their spiritual practice. When you ask people, they will tell you.
Yeah.
They want to be asked.
Yeah.
People aren't used to sitting with a doctor for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So at that point, part of that long interview is to create a relationship.
Sure.
For me to get to know the person more than their diagnosis, and to create trust.
Right.
And to instill hope, and to inspire faith. And so it depends on the level of the person that I'm talking to. But quite frankly, I don't care what your religion is.
Yeah.
I care what your spirit is.
Yeah.
So you could pray to this cup right here and believe that this is your creator. But as long as you're praying to the cup, I have studies that validate that prayer is changing your biochemistry and your immune system, and that hope and faith is changing your outcomes. So, and I pray for them. Now, I don't do a show. There's not a big deal. I don't pop open a peace pipe. We don't use that for that anyways. And do a big ritual. I do it at home. I offer prayers. I do smoke, offer holy smoke. When my patients are transitioning, I'm midwifing them in spirit. There's never fear. There's only love.
Yeah.
And people feel that.
Yeah.
And it's the fear that blocks them.
Yeah.
That's the diagnosis. The first thing you get is fear. You got cancer. What?
Right.
I've been a vegetarian all my life, ate organic, and taught people how to do that. Opened 3 co-ops. What are you talking about? I have cancer.
Right.
Well, just thank every god and goddess from every religion that you did that.
Yeah. Could be a lot worse.
Could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And you mitigated something in that. But the other thing about cancer is it's not only about disease and body burden and inflammation and pathways. It changes your life. It changes every one of my cancer patients' life. It changes their view of life. It changes the eyes that they see out of. And I'm lucky they share that with me.
Yeah.
And their path changes. Their life changes. They live.
Yeah.
They fought to live. And I talk to them about those goals. And that's another way that I put that back into reality is, okay, here we are. This is what we're going to do. Now, what's your short-term goal and what's your long-term goal?
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, you got to have a graduation or a party or a birthday or something you want to do. And then long-term, did you want to go to somewhere? Is there someone you want to see get married? Are you wanting to watch your grandkids grow up? Enlist them in their life instead of in their death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes a big difference.
Wow. That's amazing.
that all goes on behind those doors that I sometimes run late on.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about nutrition and food and how that, impacts. I mean, we all know that eating well is better for us than not eating well, but how does it impact?
There's a lot of levels to that question too, and that must be why it's called Going Deeper. So, because we know live food versus synthetic food or GMO'd food has a different energy, and I could talk the whole rest of the show about the living energy of healing and eating and being a part of that live food and the thanks that we give in that give over. But I just want to take us to modern science for a minute.
Okay.
In my short lifetime as a physician, back in my early lifetime as a physician, I was a midwife. And so fertility is one of the things I did. And midwifery is one of the things that taught me how to be able to midwife every transition.
Sure.
Same point in the medicine wheel. But as a midwife and a young doctor, I tested sperm, I tested counts, I tested hormones. And so this is a concrete statistic. 100,000 milk count for sperm was considered normal 15, 17, 18, 19 years ago. Anything under that was considered abnormal. You had defective sperm. Not only maybe 2 heads, 2 tails, but the count was defective. You didn't have enough sperm to impregnate. The normal reference today is 50,000, in half.
Wow.
That's considered normal. Why? Why
Yeah.
are we feminizing our young men?
Huh.
Why? Because of phthalates, because of plastics, because of PCBs, because of the stuff that we created in our modern world to make our life more easier. If you would have told me in the 70s that I'd be drinking water out of a bottle and I'd pay for it, I would have said, hook me up and let me invest in that because I'll go turn the faucet on. I mean, no way.
Right.
And that's what we've created. So we're creating some of these diseases to ramp up. Thyroid cancer used to be the rarest cancer. Men never got it. It was the best cancer to get. It's rampant in New England, rampant in Connecticut and Rhode Island, in young men. So we're having a ramification of our lifestyle and our impact on this biosphere, which is actually a symbiont with us. So if we don't get the concept, we can argue forever. There's no global warming, there's global warming.
Right.
There's a big-sized Texas plastic state floating in the middle of the ocean. It's really there. It's right under the surface, and all the little phytoplankton are eating plastic, and all of our food chain is now becoming plasticized. We did that.
Yeah.
We keep doing that, this will keep happening. And she's got to do that because she's got to change it
Sure.
to stay alive.
So how come we don't know that about sperm count?
Oh, we do. Every doctor that's been in practice for 20 years or more knows when they switch references. They switched it on thyroid. As a young doctor, fertility, I'm looking at thyroid a lot. 0.4 to 3.0 used to be the reference range. Now, 0.4 to 5.0. We're letting a whole 2-digit population be hypothyroid until we can get them to the place where they need medication, because there's really nothing else to do. But there is. Herbs, lifestyle, diet is the medicine. The first line of medicine is food. Food is your medicine. Let medicine be your food. And plants are food. They're medicine. They're one pepper, something as simple as a bell pepper. We know lycopene and beta-carotene and xanthines and antioxidants, but we don't know everything in that bell pepper. It's still a mystery what the rest of those constituents are.
Right.
Whole food is medicine as it was created to be for us in divine, perfect, targeted therapies. So when you look at curcumin, which is now a hot topic in cancer care, and studied quite extensively for 20 years by MD Anderson Cancer Center with Dr. Agarwal, looking for a curcuminoid that could be a chemotherapy. And what we found was the beautiful diagrammatic pathway of all the constituents of turmeric, curcumin longa. And I love science.
Yeah.
Because science is always trying to prove what we do wrong, and it's always proving what we do right. I love it because they have no bias at that point, hopefully. And so out of all that research, curcumin has become a major integrative cancer strategy. You can't take a natural constituent and patent it. It's natural. So unless they can isolate it and change it, they just did a lot of research for us on how to use curcumin.
Yeah.
And so we're using a phytozyme activated water-soluble molecule put back into a whole cut cept herb because we don't know everything, and it's changing cancer outcome. If you take the map of curcumin and you lay it over the very schematic engineer-like map of inflammation, you can actually target therapies. Yep.
Wow.
That curcuminoid will go right into that NF-kappa B, and that one will go into INOS, that one will go into Ki67, that stops off LOX5, that one stops COX1 and 2. Hey, we stopped at both ends, it can't become a cancer.
Wow.
So it also chemosensitizes, which means it makes the cancer cells more susceptible to chemo and radiation. It radiosensitizes. It's anti-inflammatory, it makes you feel better, you have less body aches and pains, and you're treating your cancer with a natural therapy right together with your conventional.
So if you take the curcumin as just turmeric, like if you have turmeric root, for instance, that now you can get in the farmer's market or in Whole Foods all time, all seasons of the year, is that as strong and as viable as taking it in a supplement form?
Well, different stages of the plant for different levels of the disease. So if you're actively in chemotherapy, you have a pretty advanced stage of cancer in some way that they are giving you conventional treatment. So you'll need a more phytotherapeutic intervention. But as an overall, when we start as food as medicine, that turmeric root will go in your bone marrow soup. If you want to do cancer prevention, everybody's looking for the diet. Eat a basic diet like Edgar Casey taught us, which is proteins, and your vegetables are most of your plate, and put some of these superfoods in there. Your purple fruit, your turmeric. You can put turmeric powder and black pepper. You have to put black pepper with it for the BioPerine to activate that turmeric, and you have to heat it. So as a food, if you look at how turmeric was used traditionally in Ayurveda, it was always heated.
Sure.
It was either put with a fat as a chai, always with the black pepper or some type of pepper. Black pepper's in chai, or cooked with black pepper and heated. And there's always a fat in Ayurvedic. It's coconut or a good fat. So that's a preventional cancer strategy. So if you're on the other side, or you're in a family of, start intervention.
I see. Yeah.
With your diet.
Wow.
And your food, and giving thanks to your food.
Sure. So what I'm also seeing is you're a really good teacher. Tell us a little bit about the teaching aspect of your career.
I tease my apprentice. I say I like to proselytize. I started teaching really young. Like I said, I was actually ordained in the church that birthed CBN and Jim and Tammy, and one of the first televangelical churches. And that was because the pastor came down to me at 12 in the parish and saw the Spirit in my eyes and told me that I was going to be a preacher.
Wow.
But to me, preacher is teacher.
Yeah.
So I always talked about Spirit, and I have no problem talking with adults. So even though I'm kind of an introvert, nobody really knows that about me. Yeah. I mean, I have to hole up sometimes and just get quiet, like in the woods or in the mountains. That's why I surf. Nobody talks to you when you surf.
Yeah.
In the ocean, she just rocks you, and you just come back to center. But for the most part, I'm out there. And so I started teaching in med school. First year in med school, I was teaching bot med because the teachers wanted me to teach because I knew more than they do. And so I've always been a teacher. But I'm a fine-crafted teacher now, 20 years of professional teaching as a professor at the University of Bridgeport and in several herbal conferences as their advanced teacher. And I'm very happy to say I'm in my 18th year as the physician for the New England Women's Herbal Conference that is in its 28th year. So I have a long, kind of steeped experience, but to me, I do a lot of teaching with my patients too.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the empowerment, is that if we can educate you, you can make a good decision no matter what that decision is. That's the decision you make.
Yeah.
And, you know, I never tell anybody, wow, that was a bad decision.
Yeah.
No,
Of course.
you don't do that. You just go down the road with them in whatever car they're driving. Sometimes it's a GTO.
Okay, so we only have a couple minutes left, and I'm just wondering, you know, at this stage of your life, you've got 20 years of being a professional doctor under your belt, you're teaching, you have this great practice, you're working in Pawcatuck and also now in Brattleboro, Vermont, which is great for people around here to get to you. So what are your hopes and goals for yourself? I mean, I'm not giving you much time to share about that, but
Well, I tell you, you're hitting all the nails on the head. So when I first went to Vermont in 1997, I knew Spirit called me there, and I feel it. Vermont's got my heart.
Yeah.
Because that land called me there to create the old naturopathic sanatorium for cancer. So that's my next journey, is I am moving my energy with Spirit. So all these years and this decades later, I feel like it's now time that the land is going to come, the opportunity is going to come. Where I'm working at right now in Brattleboro with Dr. Samantha Eagle in Biologics, she's got kind of that vision going, so it's calling me. And the integrative center I want is not like an integrative hospital. They can get their chemo other ways, but for everything else that should be, hydrotherapy, reduction salt baths, oxygen chambers, a full kitchen, therapy with each other, and loving, and yoga, and teaching young doctors. So bringing in young doctors to teach them what I do. So it really is, I feel like my last dance, because I'm in my mid-50s, that I have to train folks to do this now.
Sure.
Because at one point, I'll either want to retire or I'm going to start, you know, we start dreaming as we get older. We start thinking about Spirit more than that 1, 2, 3 that we used to do. So I'm starting now. I have an apprentice, an herbalist, an oncological masseuse I'm starting as an herbalist and specialty with that, and I'm hoping to grow that part of it too. But the real thing is to have a place for people, a real place that's affordable. You don't have to be rich to come. To make it for all people, because this medicine is for everybody. I mean, I want to get an RV but I have a bunch of herbal teacher friends that said, let's get an RV and we'll do a fundraiser and we'll hit every local herbalist across the country. I mean, the medicine's growing outside the door. If I could just get there and say, now you eat this plant and you know what it is and you just eat it the rest of your life, it'll be all right.
Wow.
Well, think of the cost and reduction of healthcare, but for those of my patients who are already there, that's my dream. So. You gave me a great ending there, Marcy. I'm hoping and praying that I'm strong enough, clear enough, humble enough, walk in humility, and live with respect for that to come through.
Wonderful. Well, you're an inspiration, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank, as always, Amherst Media and these wonderful interns that make the show possible. And I also would like to do a shout out to the supporters of Amherst Media, whose contributions help make these shows possible. And that's something that we all need to focus on. Okay, thanks. I'll see you next time. Going deeper.